Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Warren C. Street Photography Podcast. I am Warren C. and in this podcast we talk about things in and around related to street photography. We talk about the trends that I see going on and what my thoughts are around it. And of course you can definitely comment about it. Hit me up and leave me some messages and let me know what you think. We also will talk about who we repping, and in that section I talk about either who you sent me that you want me to talk about, street photography artists that you feel needs to be repped and that you're repping, or one that I have on my docket of street photographers that I look at for inspiration and to learn for that I'm repping, and I'll tell you why I'm repping and whether I will incorporate their style into mine or how I've incorporated their style into mine. Then we talk about street photography gear, right? Because you can't have a podcast about street photography and not talk about street photography gear. And I like to talk about what I've heard since the last podcast and then what I think about it, positive and negatives, as it pertains to street photography. And then we'll finish up with any Q&A I've received since the last podcast that I can answer for you guys or throw out to the community to see what type of answer we get. So again, welcome to Warren C. Street Photography Podcast. And we're going to start off the podcast with the trend. So for the trend for this particular episode, when it comes to street photography, there's always a focal length that people talk about, focal lengths, if you will, that you should be shooting your street photography with. To get the best images, like what we would consider the masters of street photography. In a lot of cases, they use the 35 mil, they use the 28 mil, they use the 50 mil, right? Some notable replacements would be wider than 28, or something that's longer than 50 every once in a while somebody will use. And there you go. But generally, you're using either something like a 28 or a 50 or a 35. They all have their merits, right? The 28, the biggest positive about using the 28 is you get a lot of the environment. Being wider, you just get more of that environment, right? Whether it's a 24 or you start reaching into the teens, you just get wider and wider of the environment. Other positive about using something like a 28 or wider is you get in a lot of cases, you may get a smaller lens, right? Less profile on your camera, so you're bringing less attention to that camera as you're taking pictures. The negative about it is that you have to get a lot closer to your subject if you want to fill the frame with that subject, especially if it's pictures of people or a person. Like say a street portrait, you may be asking somebody for one, or you see a person that you want to take an image of. You're going to have to get a lot closer. And if you're not comfortable with getting closer to that subject, particularly people, you're not going to enjoy using something like a 28 or wider. So then most people will tend to go to the next focal length, which is a 35. 35 is, they consider the sweet spot in a way between the 28 and the 50 because it's not too wide. You don't have to get as close to your subject because it'll put you in a little tighter. But at the same time, you can zoom with your feet with any of these lenses, or any lens for that matter, and be able to get more of your composition by stepping back or get tighter into your composition by getting closer. With a 35 though, if you do again have issues with taking portraits of people and approaching them, you could be the same distance away, if you will, kind of, and be able to get tighter in because that focal length is tighter. But maybe you want to get a little tighter, and maybe you're not the type of person that really gets close to your subject at all, so you then go for something that's a 50 mil or longer. Generally, people will get the 50 mil. It makes for great street portraits. So does the 35 actually, and you'll be able to not be as close to your subjects and get wonderful images while you're out on the street. But what if you are in a situation where it's tight, you're close to everything and everybody? You aren't going to use anything from 50 and above successfully, or as you may want, being that close to subjects, right? Because it's really punching in at that point. And that's where the benefits of having a wide on your camera, wide focal length, will be more beneficial. But I can be honest with you guys and say I've shot them all. They're all good to a point for me. But there's one focal length people generally don't talk about as much, and I think it's super underrated. People know about it, but I think it's super underrated, which is a 40 mil. Yes, the 40 mil is closer to what we see angle of view with our natural sight. You know, I've heard that a number of times, and maybe that's why I like it. But what I like about it is for the things that I can do with it that I can't quite do with a 50 and I can't quite do with a 35 or a 28 wider, which is it'll get me close to my subject based on the distances I generally stand from my subjects. And that's where we want to discuss things when it comes to focal lengths and street photography. Who cares? You need to go out and shoot different focal lengths to see what's right for you based on your shooting style. So the great debate about which one is the best one to use and why you should use the 28 or the 35 or the 50, or in my case a 40, is BS, really. It really comes down to what you've gone out and shot with and what you like based on the results of what you shot with. You may be that person that goes out with a 90 mil and you just love the results you get from a 90 mil, right? So go for it. But don't feel that you have to be stuck to what the popular focal lengths are from the genre. Kind of like what they say, photography is about breaking the rules. There are rules to follow that help you get good, great, fantastic images, but no one said you had to follow the rules all the time. Definitely following the trends all the time. And to me, focal lengths in street photography, they have their loves, but it's not a set in stone thing. In some cases, it could just be a trend. So get out there, try different focal lengths. You never know. You may be that person that likes a fisheye lens on yours, you know, f8, or not f8, but I should say a focal length of 8 or 10 or 12, and love the images you get from it. There you go. Let me know what you guys think. What's your favorite focal length? Do you agree? I mean, do you agree with what I just said? I think I have a good case for what I just said. And I have to say, I really love the 40 focal length after shooting all the different lengths that I've shot, from as wide as 20, 12, and 10 to as far, or as, I should say, as long as a focal length of 85. The 40 mil is my favorite. So again, let me know what you guys think. I'll have my Instagram, which is Warren C. So if you look up Instagram.com/Warren C, you'll find me. Hit me on Instagram. Let me know what you think. Hit me with a message. Let me know what you think about what I just said about the trends in focal length and how I feel you shouldn't really kind of follow those and find out what's the right one for you by testing some out. So on the next subject, which is generally have become, even though it's 2 episodes, my favorite part, I really was excited when I added this to the podcast lineup, which is who you're repping. So last episode, I rep Detroit, and I'm going to rep Detroit again. There's a artist that's actually still alive and out there still taking images, and his name is Dave Giordano. And Dave, I have 2 of his books. One of them is right here. This is Detroit Unbroken Down. And in this particular book, I want to say around the 2010, 11, 12 time frame, Dave took some images of Detroit when it wasn't at its best at that time. And he captured the people of Detroit surviving, going through what they're going through. And that's honestly the essence of documentary style photography, which he was a documentary style photographer based out of Chicago. He moved back to Detroit where he was born, I believe, and at least it's his hometown. And he's been taking images ever since he came back and produced a couple of books. If you want to follow him on Instagram, his Instagram is Giordano, and he is still out there taking images. I would love to be able to meet up with Mr. Giordano and shoot with him. I think it would be fantastic. He shot in color, and his depiction of what went on in Detroit at that time is just it's great documentary style street photography. I mean, don't know how else to say it. And that's why I actually found, when I first discovered him, looking up who the street photography artists were in Detroit, how much I gravitated his work, because I kind of shoot that way sometimes myself, and I can see his style of shooting in my style of shooting at times. One of the other books I have, which I definitely drew influence from when I started shooting low light, especially at night in the streets, is his book called Detroit Nocturnal, which I have right here. This particular book, around the 2017 time frame, he went out and he wanted to take shots of Detroit at night. He took long exposures, and again in color, and he took some wonderful images, pulling out some fantastic colors while he went out and shot Detroit at night. Whether it was the winter, whether it was in bad weather or not, he went out and captured what I believe is some of the most colorful, brilliant compositions of some of the most artistic styled architectural buildings in Detroit at the time. A lot of these buildings, I don't even think they're there now in 2024. I don't think a good number of these buildings that's in this book right here are even standing. So, I mean, not only did he document what was on it, it's now a historical documentary of Detroit and how it looked at that time that is now gone. And again, I just love the way he captured it. I love the way he set up his composition, how he did his long exposures to pull out the colors he did and take advantage of the light he had at his disposal while he was taking his images. He's still out and going. His website is davejordano.com. You can go on there and you'll be able to see a lot of his works that he's published over the years, where you can actually, if you want to support him, go ahead and support him. Check out his work. Let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with his style and his use of light and composition? Very, very, very wonderful use of long exposure in Detroit Nocturnal. It got me to even start trying to think about bringing a tripod with me. Now I actually do. If I do go out and do low light photography in and around Ann Arbor, where I'm closer to, or even Detroit, or where I'm at, I will have my tripod with me so I can set it up and really set up a nice exposure to get the right lighting and pull out those colors in blue hour and so forth. And again, a wonderful lifetime of work that Dave has, and I'm just happy to see that he's still active and still going. And if ever I think I can catch up with him and meet him, or he provides a workshop, I will definitely be at it. So that's who I'm repping for today's episode, Mr. Dave Jordano out of Detroit. And again, his Instagram is dave.jordano, Jordano, and his website is davejordano.com. So with that, we're going to go on to the next part of this podcast. And this one's going to be a good one. This one is the gear section. So last episode, I talked a lot about what specific brands, specifically Nikon and Sony and their current lineup of cameras, how for street photography, the two cameras in particular that I talked about, the Nikon Z, could do with some nice lenses to complement its styling. And then the Sony taking advantage of the Sony RX1 R2 line to kind of help fill the void of premium fixed lens cameras and get some of that love that Fuji's been getting with the X100 series. Since then, there's been a lot of announcements, from rumors to actual releases, that had me thinking about the resurgence, if we can call it that, of the fixed lens camera, premium fixed lens camera. So we'll start off with Fuji. Fuji Rumors website, Patrick has put out there over the past week, or 2 weeks since the last episode, that there's confirmed rumor that Fuji in 2025 is going to come out with a fixed lens GFX. I think I mentioned that on the last episode. I think I actually said that Fuji would be able to compete with Sony if they released the RX1 R2 if they released a GFX style fixed lens camera to compete with that, that would be awesome. And it looks like it's going to happen. So let's hope the rumor is correct, because I'm excited if it is. And the reason I'm excited is because I have the 50R and I have the 50 millimeter lens, is a f3.5, and I actually shoot that for street. It is big, it is cumbersome, it is bulky, but I love it. It produces awesome images with a 50 megapixel sensor, and all I can think of is if I had a 100 series style GFX camera, fixed lens camera, I would be blown away at the versatility, the compactness of it. The GFX 100 version 2 is smaller than the 50R, and with the same lens on it is phenomenal. Imagine that. So I'm looking forward to that if the rumor is true. There's been another announcement, actually today, May 22nd. Panasonic announced basically it would have been cool if it was fixed lens, but they announced a camera to jump on the bandwagon of premium compact cameras. This one's an interchangeable lens, the Lumix S9, and I instantly thought perfect street camera based on the setup, based on what they threw in it. A lot of things going for it that will definitely, if I was in the Lumix line of camera brand, shooting their cameras, I would be excited about this camera, purchasing it to be my daily driver street photography camera for sure. There are some things with the camera that would cause me pause if to get it as someone who doesn't already shoot Panasonic cameras. The biggest one for me is not having a viewfinder. I do shoot from the hip. I do shoot from, looking at the LCD screen on the back of my cameras when I'm shooting street. But I also do shoot through the viewfinder as well, especially with the X100 series where you have the hybrid viewfinder. I use that viewfinder as much as I can from the OVF to the EVF, and it would be a big annoyance, noose. Yeah, I can't even say the right word. It's getting me that bad. So yeah, that is the biggest showstopper for me. The other thing that's a showstopper for me for the camera, and that's just because I can't imagine shooting that way, because I don't shoot that way now, is there's no mechanical shutter. So I immediately thought of rolling shutter on this camera, especially the way I shoot. So it really comes down to personal use. I like to get a lot of panning shots when I'm out shooting, and I just can't think of not using mechanical shutter in that instance, to the point where I use a mechanical shutter majority of the time. I can't say that I really use the electronic shutter that much, because I shoot a lot of moving objects when I'm out on the street, because I generally will shoot people doing whatever they're doing on the street more than any other style of street photography, like architectural and so forth. So that's the other big thing that would stop me. Don't particularly care that it doesn't have a hot shoe and you can't use a flash with it. I don't use flash in my street photography, and I'm more of a fan of the articulating up screen. It has a flip out screen, which tells me they have some video specs they want to kind of gear this camera to, which is fine. And that's great and all. I have shot with my XS20, which has the same type of flip out. I have shot with the XS2S, which I'm filming on street, same type of flip out screen. The Nikon Z I shoot with is the same. So I could shoot with it. I would have preferred a flip up, but I know the audience that they're shooting for on this camera is a younger audience that is into social media content creation and vlogging and so forth. So there you go. Just like the Nikon ZF, right? Gonna get a quick sip. But kudos to them. I think they may have made a miss on their advertising though, because I clearly see this camera as a serious EDC street photography camera for going forward. And if I again was in the Panasonic line, I would be more than likely getting this camera. The new lens they released for it, I believe it's a 26mm f8. It's pancake, so that's good. It gives it a nice slim profile. I've seen from reviews that this camera in some cases is smaller than the X100, which is which is or fantastic. I think lengthwise or maybe thickness, without the lens on it though. And but again, you put a pancake lens on this, I'm back to looking at the ZF with its 26 millimeter. But theirs is a f2.8, so I don't know why Panasonic couldn't make that a faster f-stop than 8. But either way, for street photography, I see a lot of promise for this camera, so the jury's still out on whether folks feel it'll be great as an everyday carry street photography style camera. Then we get to Nikon. And the reason I'm back at Nikon is because during this past episode to today's episode, there was a rumor leaked at Nikon Rumors. I guess I didn't know this rumor had been going on for a while, but I guess now it's been confirmed that this camera also may be coming out in either, if not the end of this year, 2025, which is a Nikon ZS. And it looks like a rangefinder style fixed lens camera. And it looked phenomenal. I think it was fixed lens. I might be wrong on that. They might be interchangeable. And if it is, again, great. It still follows the same thing I said about the Nikon ZF. Just give me the right styling lenses to go with it. Pancake style lenses so I can make that an EDC street photography everyday camera, pocketable, easily to carry camera, which Panasonic clearly has done with the S9. Again, depending on the lenses that you can wind up putting on there. You got the L-mount lines, so you got 3 different manufacturers that hopefully has something that'll make that camera work as far as its pocketability and things like that. But kudos to Nikon if this is true. A Nikon ZS fixed lens premium camera would be phenomenal. So folks have seen the writing on the wall with Fuji, and it seems like folks are trying to take advantage of that. Oh, there is one other thing I got to give Panasonic kudos for that I would like to see Nikon do if they come out with the ZS. I would like to see Sony do is they came up with a LUT button on the camera. The LUT button, in essence, to be brief, is it's like Fuji's simulations, where you can create simulations. In this case, you can use a phone app to work with the camera to create LUTs that are created in a community environment on the app. You have LUTs that are there that you can use, or you can do changes to LUTs that people have created, or create your own and put on the community for people to use. I think that's phenomenal. It helps to add to the desire to use that camera every day for everyday use, street photography, giving you different styling of image profiles that you can use with it. No different than what we do with Fuji and the film simulations and Fujifilm Weekly. So again, good job Panasonic on that. But yeah, when it comes to the gear, it's nice to see that companies are seeing what Fuji's done and the success they're having, and they're adding to the game, which I think benefits us street photographers in getting those cameras that we would like to have that are pocketable, easy to carry. They don't have to be super feature loaded for us to create the images we want to create on a daily basis. Give me some basic video settings if you got to throw video in there. But I think a lot of them should stick to the articulating screen, because when I look at the S9 particularly that got released today, I actually see more of a photography camera than I see the video specs they threw in there. And I think they should have kept it that way, or at least released it that way. So there you go on the gear. What do you guys feel? Do you feel that we see a resurgence happening? Do you think Sony will answer with something? Right now, and I have to say, I didn't realize this for the last episode, that Sony still makes and sells the RX1 R2, which I thought was crazy. That camera's almost 10 years old and they still sell it brand new. You can get it at B&H. But it's like $3,000 still. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, isn't a 7CR $3,000 plus? If they were to put an articulating screen on that as a version, still have the, of course, flip out for folks that want to do video, but articulating screen on that, you wouldn't even need to come out with the RX line. You can just kill it off completely, because this camera, same cost, is giving you all the new features, higher megapixel sensor. Yeah, I think Sony should be looking at that. So as far as Q&A goes for the second episode of season 1, I pretty much have the question, which is the question to all of the listeners and viewers of the video on the channel. What do you guys would like to see me add to this podcast lineup of information to go over? Give me your feedback on how things are going right now so far, and definitely ask some questions. So I'll start getting some polls out on the YouTube channel to see what folks might want to go over. And then 2, again, hit me on Instagram. I have it on my YouTube channel, but I'll definitely say it in this so the audio people know it is Warren C in Instagram. So if you hit Instagram.com/Warren C, you will find me. Hit me in iMessage or let me know what you think about the podcast and what questions you may have about gear for street photography, who you repping, and where you're at street photography, and what trends you think you would want me to discuss around street photography. Thank you guys again, and have a good one. See you on the next cast.